Hi everyone, in this video we want to design this calculator application. The key layout of this calculator is similar to what you would see on iOS devices. It also has some extra UI features like the battery icon, the network icon. We also have the current time over here. You will see the current time of the user displayed at the top here, and if you check my current time is 9:09, and that's exactly what we have here. So we can perform any arithmetic operation with this. Let's say 10 plus 10. That should give us 20. We can divide 20 by 10, and that should give us 2, I guess. We can do any calculation. We can divide this by 10, and this is what we have, 228.8. We can also find percentages. So we can remove the last character with the delete key. So when we click the delete key, it removes the last character. So let's say we want 80%, and that should give us 0.8. And that's what we have. So we can also remove everything from the display here with the AC key. So when we click the AC key, it removes everything at once. But if we try to enter any expression that's not mathematically correct, like 5 times nothing, it tells us that this is an invalid operation. This is invalid. So we can all clear this. And when you click any number, you will see that it has this gradient color transition from one color to the other, and this works perfectly. So we can find the percentage of this one, and it gives us exactly what we're looking for. So this calculator works very well, and we are going to build this using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in a few minutes. But before we start this video, I want to mention real quick that if you find any value in this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tutorials like this. It really helps me out. That being said, let's get started. I created this folder on my desktop and I call it calculator. Inside of it, I have one index.html, style.css, and script.js file. I also have an images folder with all the icons, the battery, the network, and also the Wi-Fi icons that I'll be using in this video. The GitHub repo for this project is linked in the description, where you can download these icons as well. So feel free to check it out. So inside the index.html, I have the boilerplate code, and I link the HTML to the CSS and also link the HTML to the JavaScript. And in the CSS, I only have these basic stylings where I remove all margin paddings and set box sizing to border box. With the JavaScript, is currently empty and nothing fancy going on here. So in the body tag of the HTML, we'll create a div and give it a class container. Be sure to spell the container correctly. So I'll give the CSS for this container div. We'll select it with the dot. We'll set width 100%, height 100 VH, which is viewport height. Set background, a linear gradient at an angle of 130 degrees, this gray purple color, and also gray. And after the background, we'll set display flex, align items to center, and justify content to center. So head back to the HTML and run the code with VS Code Live Server extension, which I do recommend you have. Now we have a blank web page with a background image on it, the transition background image. Inside the container div, let's create another div and give it a class calculator wrapper. Inside of it, we'll create another and give it a class content wrapper. Let's give the CSS for this div. We'll start with the calculator wrapper. We'll set height and width. We'll give it a black background color. We'll set some padding. We'll give it a border radius of 50 pixels. So now let's start the content wrapper div. We'll set width and height. Also border radius 50 pixels. And when we run it, now we have the box for our calculator. So let's just add all the things we want inside of it, starting with the time and also the icons. In the content wrapper, we'll create a div and give it a class top section. Inside, we'll first create a paragraph tag with the class time now. Inside, we'll create some time, let's say 12 o'clock. And after the p tag, we'll create a div with the class icon. Inside this div is where we have the various icons for the network, for the Wi-Fi, and also the battery. So we'll first link an IMG with the class network. I'll set the path for the icon, images, and its mobile network. The auth can just be network. After this, we'll create one for the Wi-Fi. Images, Wi-Fi. The auth can also be Wi-Fi. Next is the battery. So this is all we need for the top section. Now it's looking very terrible, so let's add the CSS for it. Now let's start with the div called top section. We set width 85%. Set margin auto, margin top 15 pixels, display flex, align item center, justify content space between. We give it a padding 3 pixels top and bottom, 10 pixels left and right. After this, we'll start the paragraph tag inside of it. Font size will be default. The font color will be this RGB color code. Let's start the div with the class icon inside the top section div. We set display flex. This is the styling for it, so let's start the images inside of it. Icons IMG. Margin right 4 pixels. When we run this is what we have, and it's looking quite okay. But let's rotate the battery like we have over here. So select the icons div, icons.battery. That's the class we gave to it. We rotate it at 90 degrees. So transform. Now you can see it's rotated this way. So now let's add the section where we see everything, where we have these numbers. After the closing top section div, we'll create a div and give it a class display section. Inside, we'll create a paragraph with the class display text. Let's just put some random numbers there, 888. Now let's give the CSS. Now let's select the display section div. It's inside the content wrapper. We set width and height. Now let's start the paragraph inside of it. Display section P. We'll set width 80%. This is the styling for it. But now we want it to have this gradient color. The gradient color that transitions. So you can see we have different colors for it. We want to add that. And for that, we'll set a background. It will be a linear gradient to the right. The colors are blue, orange, and white. We'll set background clip to text. Set color to transparent. When we run this, you can see the background transition for it. And now let's add the keyboard section. After the display section div, we'll create a div with the class keyboard. And inside the keyboard, we have 19 keys. We have a total of 19 keys. So let's add them as buttons. But we'll first create the button for the first 3 keys over here, the AC, delete, and also the percentages, because they have the same background color. In here, we'll create a button with the class top key. We'll copy this and paste 2 more times. The text for the first one is AC. The next one is delete, DEL for delete. And the third one is percentage. After this one, we'll create a button, this time without a class. So we can copy this and paste 15 more times. Now let's insert the numbers and also the operation starting from the division. I'll forward this place a little. So this is what I have at the end, starting from the division all the way to the equal to. When you look at the calculator, you will realize that all the arithmetic operations have orange background color And the 0 is also having an extension beyond the border of just one key. So let's add a different class for all the arithmetic operations as well as the 0, so that we can apply the different UI design for them. So for the arithmetic keys, we'll add a class, we'll call it function key. So we can just copy this for the remaining ones. So for the multiplication, we just add the class. So for the subtraction, for the addition as well, and also for the equal to. So this is it. And let's add the CSS for it. Now let's start with the keyboard. It's inside the content wrapper. We set padding. Now let's start the keys inside the keyboard, which are the buttons. We set width and height. This is the styling for the button. So when we run this is what we have. So let's add the background for the first 3 buttons. We give them the class top key. We'll give it this background color and also change the color to black. Now we can see it looks different, but the buttons are way too packed, so let's add some margin to them. So in the button, we'll just add margin 5 pixels. Now you can see it's a little bit spread out. So now let's add the background color for the function keys. Remember, that was the class we gave to them in the HTML. And we'll select the keyboard div, function key. We'll change the background color to orange. We'll increase the font size, 1.3 Arial. When we save this one too, you will see the color change for it. So now let's do that for the 0 key. In the HTML, let's give it a class, the 0 key. Give it a class 0. So it's also in the keyboard. We give it this styling. We set with 100%, text align left, give it some padding and border radius. When we save, it's also well aligned. So the only thing we are left with is this pattern over here, this white line at the bottom over here. So let's add that in the HTML. After the closing keyboard div, we'll create a button with the class footer btn. Now let's add the CSS for it. It's also inside the content wrapper. Set display block. This is the styling for the footer btn. So when we run this, it looks okay, perfectly okay. And this is all the HTML and CSS markup we need for the project. So let's continue with the JavaScript to add the functionalities. Since we already linked the JavaScript to the HTML, let's see if that's actually working. So we'll go into the JavaScript file and let's create some alert statement. Hello. When we save, we see our alert over here. It means the HTML is actually working with the JavaScript. So now we can remove this alert statement and do something more meaningful. With the JavaScript, we have to divide it into 2 sections. The first section for the time and also the second section for the calculation. So let's get started. And with the time, we want to select this div, this p tag over here with the class time now. So we can copy this. And we'll declare a variable here. We'll call it time now. With the const keyword. I'm using the camel case notation. And so we make the n a capital letter. So we'll make this equal to document.query selector. And it's a class in quotes time now. And remember, it's this paragraph tag that holds our time. Currently, it's saying it's 12 o'clock, and that is static, and we don't want it that way. So we want the time to be able to change. Every second, we want it to be updated. And to get the current time, we have to extract it from the date object, which is an object in JavaScript. For that, we'll declare another variable. We'll call it our date. And this will be equal to new date. Let's console log the date object and see what it is. This is the date object. It has every information about the day we are looking for. Today is Sunday and it's November. We have the day of the month and also the year. We have the time zone as well. But we are just interested in the time of the day. To get the current time of the day, we'll convert this date object to local time string. So let's create another variable. We'll call it current time. It should be equal to our date dot to local time string, which is this one here. That will end in quotes. So now let's console log the time. So instead of our date, we'll make it current time. So we'll save this and see what we have. And if you open the console, you see that we have the current time, which is 9:15 with a second. So we want to put this time inside the time now paragraph tag, which is the time we have on the calculator. So now we can remove this console log statement. So now what we have to do is to take this time now paragraph tag and set the inner text to our current time. So we'll take the time now dot inner text should be equal to current time. And when we save this, we see that we have the current time here, but it's not changing. When we refresh the page, you see it keeps reading, but we cannot be refreshing the page just to keep the time working. So we want it to be updated every 1 second. And for that, we have to use the set interval function. But before that, let's set to the HTML and remove this time over here, this one. So now, instead of declaring our logic this way, we'll put it in the set interval function, which is a function that gets called after every specific duration that we have set. So for our case, we are going to be setting this every 1 second to keep updating our time every 1 second, which is the same as 1000 milliseconds because it takes the delay in milliseconds. Let's define the set interval function. Set interval. It takes an arrow function as a parameter and an interval in milliseconds. So we want it to be called after every 1000 milliseconds. So 1000, which is the same as 1 second. So now we can cut our block of code from here and paste it inside the interval function and correct the indentation. So when we run this, now our time is working the way we want it to. So we are done with the time section, and let's continue with the other functionalities, the calculation aspect of it. Let's make a comment here so that we know this is the current time function. So now let's go to the calculator functionalities. Let's leave some comment. Calculator functionalities. To start with the functionalities of the calculator, we first want to select this text over here, the display text. We also want to select the keyboard and all the keys inside of it so that we can extract the keys from the keyboard. So we'll select the keyboard and extract the keys from it. For the display text, const display text should be equal to document the query selector in quote with a dot display text, which is this class that we gave to it over here. Now let's select the keyboard. Const keyboard should be equal to document dot get element by class name, and the class is keyboard. And because we are selecting with class name, we don't need a dot. Now we've selected the keyboard, but we don't actually need the keyboard. We need the buttons, the keys, which are inside the keyboard div. So let's extract the keys from the keyboard div, which are the buttons inside of it. So we'll declare another variable. We'll call it keyboard btn. It should be equal to keyboard dot get element by tag name. And the tag we want to select is button. It's the buttons that we want to select from the keyboard, which are these ones, the button, the keys. I can save this to get it formatted. Now what we have to do next is to look through all these buttons, the keys, and set event listener on each of them. So we'll first look through it using the for loop and set event listener on all of it. So we'll set our for loop. Var I should be equal to 0 with a semicolon. And we'll keep this iteration as long as I is less than the length of these keyboard buttons. Keyboard button btn dot length, and at every iteration we'll increment I by 1. I++. Now we'll create the braces. Now let's set event listener on all the buttons, and this is where things get more interesting. So we'll take the keyboard btn at index of I dot add event listener, and it will be a click event, so in quote. And after this, we'll declare an arrow function, which will take a parameter event. This event represents all the buttons in the keyboard, and the one that gets clicked at any point is called the event.target. So let's actually console log it out and see if we are doing the right thing. So console.log event.target. I forgot to mention here, this side, because we are selecting this one with class name, it returns a node of items, all the elements with this class, but we only want the first one, which is only one that we are having. So we select at index 0. So that means we are selecting only one, which is the first one. So now when we run this, we'll go to the console, we can inspect, go back to the console, and when we click any of it, you see that we have it here. When we click each of them, we see the inner text of it over here indicating all of them. So this is working the way we intended to. Now we have to define the functionality for the various buttons. The first one is AC. We want, whenever we click this key, we want everything here should be removed, or everything in the display should be removed. And when we click the delete, we want the last character of what is inside to be deleted. So let's start with the AC key. Let's remove the console log. Now let's define some if statement. To know which button we have clicked, we have to compare the inner text of this button that we are going to click to the event.target. Let's define the if statement. If event.target.inner text double equals AC, what do we want to do? We want to remove everything in the display. So we'll take the display text, set it to an empty string. When we save this and head to the page, and we click the AC key, it should remove everything here. So when we click it, it removes everything. So this is working correctly. Now let's do it for the delete key. For the delete, else if double equal del, we'll remove the last character. Sorry, inner text dot slice from the beginning index of 0 to -1, which is the last one removed. When we save this and we click the delete key, see it removes the last character. So this is also working correctly. So we are done with these two. So let's go to the main one, which is the equal to sign. Else if event.target.inner text double equals equal to sign in quotes. For that, we'll first check if the expression contains a percentage sign. So we'll set another condition again. If display text dot inner text dot index of in quote percentage not equals -1. This condition here checks if whatever we type inside of the display text contains a percentage sign. If the index of a percentage sign is equal to -1, then it means it's not part of the expression. But if it is not equal to -1, then it means we have a percentage sign inside of it. And for that, display text dot inner text should be equal to display text dot slice. So we'll remove the last character, which will be the percentage sign itself, because we expect the percentage sign to be the last character to be typed when we are looking for a percentage of a specific figure. And once we remove the percentage sign, then we can divide whatever is left by 100 to find the percentage of it. And if it does not contain a percentage sign, else we'll just evaluate anything that is inside of it. So display text dot inner text will be equal to eval, which is a JavaScript inbuilt function. Evaluate display dot inner text, display text. dot inner text. Now we have checked if the event or target, which is the button that's being clicked, if it's an AC, it has the inner text AC, DEL, or equal to. What if it's none of these keys? What if it's not AC or delete or the equal to sign? Then it means it's any other key other than these three. And for that, the only thing we have to do is to type it inside the display so that when we click any other key, it will be in the display. If it's not one of these ones, then it will be inside of the display text. Then that would be the else part of this if statement. Else if, else if. So that would be the else part of it. And for that, we just take the display text dot inner text, and it should be equal to event or target dot inner text. So if it's none of these keys, the AC, DEL, or equal to, we just want to write the inner text of the event or target inside the display text. And now that we have this, we can get back to the HTML and remove this one, this 888. So now we can save to see if our code is working. Now everything is cleared. So when we click 4, you see 4 right here. When we click 9, we have 9. When we click 8, we have 8. But the previous things we click goes away once we click a new one. And that's not what we want. And that's because in the else part, we just added the new event or target or inner text to the display text. Rather, we should append it. So instead of equals, we should make it plus equals so that it will maintain the previous element that's been clicked. So when we save this one, now we can click multiple buttons and keys, and if we click the AC, everything goes. We click the DEL and remove the last one. When we click something that contains an @ sign, it does the operation for us. So we can all clear this. What if we type something like this? It's not working. When we click the equal to sign, it doesn't work. Why? When the event or target or inner text is an equal sign, the only thing we are doing is that we are checking if it contains a percentage sign, then we do whatever we want to do. Else, we are just evaluating anything that is inside the inner text if it's not containing a percentage sign. We didn't check for an error, so we should have a way of checking where a user enters an expression that's mathematically incorrect. And to do that, we have to use a try-catch to be able to catch any potential error. Before we evaluate anything, when the inner text of the event or target is an equal sign, we have to try and catch any possible error. So we'll use the try-catch block. We'll try to evaluate in the try block and catch any potential error. And we can remove this one, the if statement, from here up to this point, the eval. We cut it from here and put it inside the try block. If we can't evaluate, then we'll throw an error to the user. So we'll set display text dot inner text will be equal to in quotes error. Initially I made it invalid, but it's all the same. So now we can save. When we head over to the page and we try to enter something that's not mathematically correct like we did previously, it throws an error to us. And this is exactly what we want to happen. Now I can just clear this and do our calculations. 70 divided by 10. I think that should give us 7. That's correct. So we can remove this one. Find percentages like 80%. That should be 0.8. Exactly so. 50 times 2 should be 100. The time is also working the way we want it to. We have the UI. Very nice. So folks, this is basically how we've come to the conclusion of this video. How we built this incredible calculator which does all basic calculations using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you find any value in this video so far, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tutorials like this one. If you have any question or suggestion, please do leave it in the comment section. Hope to see you in the next one. I'm Daniel. Thanks for watching.